Okay, welcome to everyone who is joining us today for the introduction to Power BI Christmas Carols text analysis. So we're delighted to be putting on more of a festive session for you today to get everyone in the mood. And today's session will be delivered by Laura Graham-Brown. Laura has been delivering sessions with us over the last couple of months, so we're delighted to be welcoming Laura back again today too. Please feel free to get involved in the Q&A today. So there is a Q&A on your screen. Any questions, comments that you have as well about today's session, that's where you can pop them through, and I'll be keeping an eye on that as we run through the session. We have about 60 minutes for today's event, and it will be recorded. So once that session is recorded, we hope to put it on our Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel, and I'll then send you out the link to that through the meetup page where you RSVP'd for today's session. So I'll hand over to Laura to get us started.
Thank you, Emma. Good afternoon, everyone. I imagine you're all like me heading towards your Christmas break. And for those of you that have a Christmas break, I realise there are some people that work all the way through. So normally, if it wasn't COVID, I go along and support a number of choirs singing Christmas carols, and there's far too many Christmas carols I know off by heart. So I thought we'd use that data today. So let's start the session. First things first, we get PowerPoint to behave. Code of conduct, okay. Microsoft are very, very keen on this, as am I, as one of the leaders of a user group. If there are any situations in any event, and by the way, not just Microsoft events, any techie event where you don't get this kind of response, and you do find that there is something that is making it difficult for you to be included, please approach people. Please tell people. The MVP community are very keen to make sure that actually this goes for all of our events. Okay, so Microsoft mean this, they really do, as do all the MVPs. So please, and if you can't find someone to approach and go that way, please reach out to one of the MVPs you know, or reach out to me. Right, because hey, let's go and achieve some more by doing some Power BI things. So firstly, a little bit about me. I've been doing this far too long, 20 plus years of making, my job has been, Laura, here's some data, please do a report. Or Laura, here's this report that takes five hours per week to do, please can we just do it quicker? So I've been doing that for too long and teaching people to do that. On Twitter, I am at LauraGB. I have a blog, Hatful of Data, and you can find me on the Find MVP site as well. I'm not, my surname isn't really GB, it's Graham Brown, but that's too long. So I am Laura GB in most places. So what we're doing today? Today we're going to build a report, and I apologise to anybody who has seen this slide before, because if you've been to any of my other sessions, I use exactly the same slides. The one difference is here on the transform, I've put in AI functions because that's what we're going to look at today. But here are the steps of making a report, from getting your data, bashing it into shape, drawing some pictures to do the visualizations, your charts, etc., and then publishing it. That's what we're aiming to do today. So, but it doesn't quite work like this. So actually what is more accurate picture is this one here, which is showing that getting hold of the data, the larger organization you work in, the more difficult it's going to be, I can almost guarantee. My little Diddy companies that I work with, great, I can find the person who owns the data and etc. Large companies, oh my goodness, it's a different game. But once you've got the data, transforming it, modeling it are really important. They are the ones that you should be concentrating on, because if you get those right, visualization is really easy and takes hardly any time at all, and publishing is really, really easy at the end as well. Visualization, there are people who are good at visualizing. I am not one of them. Okay, I'm a techie geek. I understand you need charts to do various things, but find the person in your marketing department who's good at what things look right and get them to help you. So before we even get to looking at what our data, what we can do with data, etc., 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 why are we doing this report at all? So what question are you answering? Why are we bothering? What's the challenge? So on this one, it's really simple. I haven't got any business reasons to do this, okay? But what's most positive, Carol? So a sentiment analysis of our carols. What comes up the most positive? Are the long carols more positive or less positive? Well, which way does it go? And then also doing some breakdown of some phrases. What's the most common phrase inside our Christmas carols? Now, if you were looking for this for not using Christmas carols, because obviously I imagine there are very few companies who this is at all interesting with. But let's go for doing some reports that you give out to people, your text, your tweet conversations that are going out on behalf of your company, etc., etc. What's the message you're giving? What's the underlying? Is it positive? Does the sentiment actually match what you want it to match? What's the most common phrase that you're using? Does that match what you want it to say? So that's where these things are coming from. Okay, Microsoft haven't really designed these tools just to do carols. So that's what we're gonna have a go with, right? And so when I started this is what we're going to do. I thought, I know there are sites that have Christmas carols text, and as part of the demo, we'll drag it off those. We'll do all that stuff. I'll show how those work. And then I actually ran through the demos. You'll be impressed, Emma. I actually did test how long the demos would take. And when I got to an hour and a half, I thought, maybe not. So I have cut down the fetching the data. I've removed the scraping the data off of my Christmas Carol site. I'm going to do that as a video and put that up as a post to support where I got the data we're going to use today from. So I've saved it all into an Excel file. And we're then going to use a bit of Power Query, which includes some text analysis tools, and then we're going to pop it into Power BI and do some nice tricks in there. So let's move on to the demo. So let me just go and fetch Power BI across onto this screen. So here we are in Power BI. When Power BI first launches, it comes up with a great big yellow box on it that gives you lots of links to lots of really useful things. Microsoft is really keen to give you the tools you need to not only use, but to learn how to use. So they have some brilliant videos and some brilliant resources in how to get there. Okay. So, and there's lots of us MVPs out there also who have lots and lots of blogs in doing various things. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go and get some data. Now, if you want to do this report, okay, what I have done, it needs a little bit extra bits added to it, but for the purposes of today, I have done, oops, I was on a different screen. Let me find the right screen. It's not on that screen. Okay. I'm just going to load a browser and I'll take us to it. Hat full of data. So hat full of data, here we are. Here's my text analysis, Christmas text analysis post. I will add a few more things on the end of it once I've finished doing whatever we're going to do in this session. But what I've got here is the Excel file that I'm using today. There's a copy of it, the background I'm going to use, and I'm also going to use a theme, okay, which I had to zip in order for WordPress to let me upload it. But there's the resources for today's session, okay. And if you're watching this from the recording, these will stay up. I will leave these up, and I will put a link to the recording into that patch of the post. So I am not playing ball today with desktops. There we go. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go and get our data. Now, if you're getting your data from that Excel, so wait a minute, I meant to copy that link just to prove that I can do it the same as you guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that link. And I am not going to go for Excel because that's an Excel file that's local on my PC. That's what that's aiming for. So that's what this one is as well. So I'm going to go for get data, and where my data is on the web. And there you are. It's asking for a URL, and I can put that is the wrong URL. Bother. My apologies. I'm going to have to fix the blog post as well, but I'm not going to do that now. So what I'm going to do is I am going to hopefully, there is what the link should be. I will post that out as soon as this part is finished. It's a recent one, but that's exactly the same. Okay, so I'm going to click onto there. And what it's going to do is it's going to try and get a connection to that Excel file. And occasionally it gives you an error like this. Ignore it. It's telling fibs. You click OK, and then it goes, but we found them anyway. Okay, so I'm going to go to the carols. And what we have on here is we've got a carol name and then the verses and choruses. So I've got carols I'm assuming you've all heard of here. Away in a Manger, Every Child Knows, Ding Dong Merrily on High, etc. And there we go, all the verses that I put together there. And so down the bottom here, I've got load or I've got transform. Load is the data is clean, it's ready, it's okay to load straight into Power BI. Transform data is saying I want to do some changes to it. So we're going to go for that one. And transform data will open up Power Query. And Power Query is where you are transforming your data. You're changing the shape of it. Okay, so we've got some song names and we've got some verses in a carols here. So we're going to do a couple of tweaks, right? Firstly, I want a list of unique songs. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do a right click on here and I'm going to do a reference. Reference means that the source just says point at that pull there. Okay, so I'm going to call this my carol list. I type in the top right hand corner here. And what we're going to do is I just want the name of the songs. So I'm going to go for getting rid of the verse column. So we do that by choosing columns. And I take off the verse. We don't need these duplicated. So I'm going to do this. There's lots of different ways you can do this. You can either do it by the ribbons at the top here, or I can do a right click and I can do remove duplicates. And there we are. We've got a unique list of our songs. And what we're going to do is we want an ID number just to make it a little bit easier later on. And we're going to add a column that is going to be an index column. And you have a choice, either start from 0 or start from 1 or a custom number. Well, let's go from 1. And there we are. There's my list of 1 to 25 of some Christmas songs. If you don't want it to be called index, if you've got the formula bar up, okay, which you can turn on the view ribbon, there's a formula bar tick box. We can give this a song ID, maybe is a better name. Okay, so that's given us our list of songs and given them a number. The next thing we want to do, okay, is I want to do some working out the analysis of this, but I want to bring back in the ID number. So I'm going to do another reference. I'm going to leave this one alone and just reference off it each time. Okay, and I'm going to call this carol verses. Okay, and what we're going to do, the first thing I'm going to do is I want to bring in that ID number. So I'm going to do my merge queries up the top here. And you've got two choices. You can either merge queries or merge as new. I'm going to do a merge queries. And it says here's one, and here's the other one. What do I want to merge it with? I want to merge it with my carol list. And the bits that are going to match is song name to song name. They're the two columns that match. And the left outer means keep all the carol verses whether there's a carol that matches or not. But we don't have to worry about that because they will all match this time. So we're going to click OK. And there we are, we get a table. So I can click into here and I could take out this. I don't need the song name to come back. I just want the song ID. And I also don't need a prefix. And then we can click OK. So there we are. Those top 8 lines are all song 1. And we can see that the song name is in there as well. But just to make it tidier and easier to play with, I'm just going to remove that song name column. So I'm going to go back to choose columns and take out the song name. So we've got a really simple little symbol that we've got a list of our songs and then all their verses. This is what's called building a star schema, which is what you end up doing an awful lot of flat files. So I've got the flat file here, okay, and then I've built these 2 off it. That flat file I never want to see in my report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to take off the enable load. And it becomes italic, which means it won't come through. So there's my carol verses. Let's do the first thing. Let's find out how positive are each verse. Okay. Now, I am logged in at the moment into my Power BI is logged in with a premium license. Now, premium licenses previously to this year, one of the big announcements this year was premium per user. So it used to be that premium was a expensive way of doing Power BI that made sense for large organizations. You needed about 1,000 people using your Power BI, etc., to make it worth it. Maybe a bit less than 1,000, but that was the kind of number you needed within your organization for it to make sense. This year, thanks to a lot of work from a guy called Chris Finland, they've produced this thing called premium per user, which means that the people that have that license within your organization have access to premium features. Okay, and there are some great premium features, and that's what we're going to use today. Now, the reason I demonstrate them today is until April next year, premium per user is free because it's in preview. There will be a bill, there will be a cost for it in April. Okay, but for the next 3 or 4 months, let's make use of it. Let's see what tools and things there are there and things to play with to see if it's worth it. It gives you a great chance to try it out and see if it benefits. So this is perhaps not one of the features that you're going to be able to sell to your boss, but hey, you never know. It depends what organization you're in. So these AI insights, the section over here on the right, okay, requires you to be logged in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on text analytics. We're not going to do anything on vision or Azure machine learning. There are some brilliant videos out there on those two. I haven't got any good pictures of the vision at the moment. And the Azure machine learning, I think there are probably some pretty good sessions in the reactor for that one. I'm sure I've seen them in the past. So here are the things it offers you as text analytics. Detect language. Now, unfortunately, I haven't got a German Carol in here. I did have on one of my data sets, but not in this one. But what we have got is extract phrases. We'll do that in a moment. And score sentiment. So I'm going to click on score sentiment. And it's asking you what score. Now, it's also asking you for language. So if you had multiple languages, you'd be able to do it so that they score based on the language. And then we can click OK. Now this adds you a step, applied score sentiment, and you can see it's up the top there. Now this takes a while. This takes a bit of time to go back to go through the service because it has to go onto an online version. It's also added you in a score sentiment. Now that was nice and quick. So there we are. We've got scores. Now for lines where it really can't work out what on earth is happening. This one here, probably ding dong, it gives a 0.5. It kind of goes, if I really don't know what's happening, I'm going to go for the middle of the road. So there are quite a few verses where actually it just goes, I don't know. I saw 3 ships. There's no sentiment in there at all. It's just a fact. So it's put 0.5. That's how it gets around the whole issue. But there we are. And some of them, it can't work it out. Gloria in excelsis Deo. They can't work that out at all. So it's just come up with null. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to be a number. If you look, there's a ABC 1, 2, 3. You need to change that. So that's going to become a number. And then I want to pick out the most common phrases that are coming out of these carols. Okay. So because it will change this quite a lot, what we're going to do is I'm going to do a reference off there. While I'm still calculating, it'll let me do this. I can do a reference off there. And this is going to be my phrases table. It's still thinking about it because it's got to wait for Carol verses to stop thinking about it, but it'll get there in a second. What are people's favourite carols? One of my favourite carols, I'm not going to say which one yet because it actually has the lowest sentiment score, which is kind of depressing, really. And sentiment is how positive it thinks it is. So what we're going to do on this one is I want to work out the phrases from this. So we're going to go for text analytics again. Takes a little while for it to connect up and to load. And it's taking even longer. Come on, you had it a minute ago, system. There we go. Extract key phrases. And there we are. We're going to get out of the verse and the language thing again. And I can click OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to add some extra columns onto the end here. You end up with, now I'm not going to tell you the names of the columns. You end up with a number of columns coming through. And now what this does is it's added these functions in. And obviously you can't hand this report to somebody who hasn't got a premium license because they won't be able to refresh it. But you could put this through as a data set and they could pull from there. So what I've got here is there's all the key phrases separated by commas, and then there they are without the commas. Okay, but weirdly, which I perhaps need to point out to somebody at some point, they've all got a space at the front of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that one there and I'm just going to remove the space. So on the transform ribbon, there is a format and you can go for trim, and trim will take off spaces off the front. And we're also going to, all I really want is the song ID and the phrases. Okay, so there we are, all the text lines up now. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to quickly do a choose columns. Okay, and I'm going to take it down to just being the song ID and the last key phrase column. Okay, and click OK. The nulls are useless. We don't need those. So we're going to remove those as well in a second. And I'm going to rename. So what the important part in Power Query is to make sure you only keep the columns you want. Okay. Favorite Carol, Silent Night. That's a good one. Sorry, I just noticed that. I'll come back to that in a second. Is to remove the columns you don't want, you don't need. Keep it small. Remove the data you don't want. So do the filtering here. I mean, the fact that song ID has a null phrase doesn't help at all. So let's go remove that null phrase. I'm blank. Sarah, your question. Looking for positive or negative words, is there a dictionary you specify? No, there isn't a dictionary you specify. It is Microsoft's version of what is positive. So there's an interesting question there as to how good they have it for some foreign languages, I imagine. So there's probably some quite interesting things, but they have done a lot of work on this with a lot of text. One of the most interesting ones, which perhaps we should do for next summer, is the reviews of hotels, doing exactly the same trick as I'm doing here. But they have put an awful lot of data through it. So they in lots of different languages. I imagine some of the slightly less used languages they probably haven't, but the Spanish, I imagine most of the Spanish, French, Chinese, etc., that have done quite a lot. That's a good question. I'm now going to have to go and see if I can find out where it is. The last thing I'm going to do into here is rename this column. So I'm just going to call that phrase. So before I do my load into Power BI, I just go and check that these ones have both got types. My Carol verses have got type, sentiment, score. My Carol list is there. They've got types, and Carol's is not being loaded. Okay, so now let's do my close and apply, which will take a little while. So Power Query does what's known as the transformations. So it makes it into tables. It does some of the clever stuff. It does some quite good things on merging. I realized we only did a very simple little merge in there, but actually there's some really good things you can do with merges to simplify your data. And then bring it through into here. So this will show you your this will bring through your data, and it will try and work things out for you. It's waiting for the AI functions, which is going to be the slowest part. And then so when you refresh your data, what you are refreshing is the Power Query is going to run again. Okay. So now I've loaded my data. The message in the middle here has changed from trying to get data to building some visuals. Before you build your visuals, though, I recommend you go and have a look in the model in the relationships. So if we look into here, okay, it's showing me that I've got my phrases, and there's a one-to-many relationship from the Carol list to phrases. So one Carol has multiple phrases. That makes sense. And I've got one Carol here, and I've got the verses, and there we are. I've got one Carol has multiple verses. That makes sense. Okay, so there's the one there and the star there showing one-to-many. Now, another update that's come through recently, and by the way, if you want to get the Power BI updates, I am kind of expecting one tomorrow. As the one that they've said there's going to be a December one, and I can't imagine it's going to happen next week. So I'm assuming it's happening this week, and they tried to do it on Mondays to put it into the system, which means it gets to us on Tuesdays. One of the updates that came through is the updating of this view, but it warns you about it. So at the top here, it says there's a new model view. Okay, it's easier to read. So I'm going to click on upgrade now because I quite like the change. And there we are. We get the change come through. It doesn't make much sense in this particular, much difference in this particular one because I've got nice short little tables. But if I click collapse there, it will just show me any fields that are related to another table. And so it'll hide all the ones where you've, so if I've got 50 fields in there, it's really useful. So this is a really good one. So that upgrade, but what you do need to be aware of is there is no way of going backwards. So save before you do it and then have a look. Okay. So the other thing that also on the right hand side here, just while we're on this, there is a pin key field to the top of a card. So if I click on there, you'll see song ID is at the top on all of them. Okay. So there is my picture. So now let's go and have a look. Let's have a think about the things we want to be able to do. I want to know the average sentiment. So I'm going to create a measure for that. And I also want to be able to count phrases. Okay, so I'm going to do a measure for that as well. So let's go. If I go to the middle view there, data, we get to see our data. Okay, and if you don't like the order, by the way, columns are in. Back in Power Query, you can move columns around to be ordered differently. Okay, so there's all of my ones there. So we're just going to do a couple of really quick measures. I'm not going to use quick measure. That's bad phrasing. I'm going to do a couple of measures. One is the average sentiment, and one is the count of phrases. So let's just zoom in a little bit. So if you hold the control key down and mouse wheel, that will zoom in on the text here. And this is a language called DAX. So we're going to put into here the average sentiment. I'm going to call this. And there are no prices in. There's no good arguments for not using spaces inside names of columns and measures. That doesn't give you any. And it helps. It makes it more readable for everybody else. You can use colon equals or just straight equals. If you are learning DAX, okay, and DAX is new for you, Microsoft have lots of things out there to learn, but even Microsoft will admit the people we all learn DAX from, including Microsoft, are two gentlemen called Marco and Alberto, who run the SQL BI site, which is amazing, and they recommend putting colons in. So average sentiment, I'm just going to put in, as soon as I start to type in average, it will give me the functions that would work. So we're going to go for average. And then it offers you the columns. And there we are, Carol versus, there's the score sentiment. So we can go into there, click that. Now, if I press return, if you look over here on the right-hand side of my screen, there is an average sentiment measure. It's got a little calculator next to it. Now, it sits inside one of the tables. It can sit inside whichever table you like, but pick a table or create a table specially for measures. There are lots of arguments about where you should put them. I put them normally in the one that it relates to. So I would either put it in the Carol list or in the verses list. But I want the average sentiment of a Carol, so I'm going to stick it in a Carols list. And let's put in another new measure. And this is going to be the phrase count. This will tell you how many times that phrase happens. Oh, let's put in colon equals. Let's stick to the same syntax. Okay. And I'm going to put this in as a count. And we're going to count. Now I'm going to go to the phrases and I'm going to count the song ID. So there we are, we've got our two measures. Now, I know that's just a very simple count, but I do recommend building up your measures. It makes this next bit really easy. Okay, so let's go and have a look at the sentiment of our carols and how that works. We're going to start by a really simple little table. Okay, so if I just click on a text column, so let's go for song name. It will instantly give me a table because that's what it does. Okay, if I didn't pick on a text column, I had picked on a measure or a number column. So I'm going to go on average sentiment instead. It gives you a chart. That's what it does by default. So I've just realized there's a question about loading data. When you uncheck enable load, will it stop reading an updated source if it changes on the website? No, it won't. The turning off load that I turned off back from Power Query stops it being loaded into Power BI desktop. But just to answer that question, I'm just going to quickly jump back. But here in Power BI desktop, okay, on the view ribbon, there is a query dependencies. And here we are, we can see all the things that feed through, okay? And you'll see the ones that are loaded, okay? And the ones that are loaded and the carols there that's load disabled. So they all feed through. When the refresh happens, carols is refreshed, but I don't need it to come through to Power BI. So it's not stopped. So if I do a right click on this again, you can see include in report refresh is still ticked. Okay, because other things rely on it, it has to be ticked. Because I haven't changed anything, if I do close and apply, it will just come back straight through. There's no changes to apply. But anyway, that was clicking on a text column, that was clicking on a number column. I'm just going to get rid of that chart for a second, remove that. Okay, so there's all my columns, and I can then click on average sentiment. And there we are, we have our average sentiment of all of our carols. Okay, now if you are in a group that's the best visual, a table, then brilliant. I'm all for it. It's not for a lot of people though, and people usually want a pre-chart. So let's just go and do a chart, a similar thing. So I'm going to start with exactly the same. And I'm going to bring in my average sentiment. And I can change that. Okay, so that's at the moment on a table. If you look at the visualizations pane on the right here, I can pick another visual. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go for stacked bar chart. And there you are. It's also sorted them. There are our carols. Okay. One of my favourite carols is Good King Wenceslas, and Away in a Manger. Let's be honest, an awful lot of us got taught that at school. They're the negative ones, which I find really weird. But so there is our chart, a nice simple one. And if you look, because I used named measures, I've got average sentiment by song name. That might not be quite the title you want, but it's not bad. It's nearly there. Okay, so I've got those. So that's a kind of page that works kind of. It's not the prettiest thing in the world though. So we're going to do a couple of changes. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the format of the page. So I've made sure I've got no visual selected, and I'm going to click on format, and I'm going to go for page background, and I'm going to add an image. And I'm in completely the wrong place. Let me just hope I can remember where I put these things. I hid them in completely the wrong place. Reactor series, that's where I put them. And there's my Christmas Carol background. And you put it in and you think it didn't work. It hasn't appeared. And that's because the default is 100% transparent, which is slightly weird. And there you are, it's at the back there. But all of these pictures have, if you see, they've got a background, okay? And also perhaps not very Christmassy colors. So I can click on to view and you see there's some themes here. And there's all sorts of themes. You can do some bizarre change in the themes. See, that one's given us some nice colors. And it's also made that one, the background, go transparent. I have created, though, a theme. I've created Christmas Carol theme. Remember, I'm not very good at colors. Okay, so this is not going to be amazing. For my Christmas Carol theme, when I click open, it's a JSON file. There we are. There's some Christmas. It's done it successfully. There are some Christmassy kind of colors. When you're going to change colors for things, you'll find they're more Christmassy. You can. What I didn't fix though was things like that should be in black. And the way you kind of do those things is we come into here and I can customize my current theme. And I'm going to go, and they're very generic. So here are the colors I picked. They're not very Christmassy. That's the kind of meant to be gold. But anyway, if I go to text here and I go to title. Oh. That was weird. I've not had that message before. Okay. Font family, for my titles, I can pick. It's not going to let me. How weird. I'm going to pick that I want that to be pretty dark. And click apply, and I'm hoping that's going to work. There we go. That's my theme fixed a lot better. I thought my theme was sorted. It's meant to have bigger text. I'm going to have to check that theme file out. I think my Power BI might have updated since I last built it. So there we go. I've put in bigger text. A theme can include larger text, etc. And obviously that's not worked completely because we can't have that table. And the score there we go. I'm just about to fit them in. Now what you can do is I can pick one in here and it will show me what the values are. I could use a control key and I can pick multiple ones. Okay, so this is Power BI reacting. If you click on one again, it unfilters it, and I could do it either way round. Okay, so that is that part. That background isn't completely right, so let me just check that background for a moment to make sure I've got the page picked. Formatting, page background, image fit, not normal but fit. There we are. I knew I had a line across the page. So if you've got lots of people like me who aren't very good at layout, it might be kind to give them some backgrounds that help them with layout and make it work a little bit better. Okay. So that they can judge where to put things, they can judge where to put a title, etc. on the page. So I can now bring in, insert a text box. Why I didn't notice there's a space up here for it, I'm not totally sure, but never mind. And pick your font size. The easiest thing to do is to pick it before you start the typing. And I'm just going to make that a bit wider. Okay. If you do need to change text size, you need to select it all and change the text size in there. How positive is your carol? That will do. Okay. So obviously you can do some nice layouts and maybe put some Christmas logos in. So there we are. We've got here we come a wassailing, or wassailing, not sure, is the most positive. And if you go and have a look at it, it's about having a drink, basically. And God Rest You Merry Gentlemen. See, that they're the two carols we obviously should be singing. And if you scroll down here, we've got Away in a Manger, which we teach to small children, and Good King Wenceslas, which is a good carol if you've got men and women. So the next part we're going to have a look at is the phrase count. So I'm just going to go to a new page, and I'm just going to very quickly put in that page background again. And see, in part of my theme, I said the background shouldn't be transparent, and we'll just do a fit. That works. So this time I want to do a word cloud based off the phrases. Okay, so let me just show you what the phrases kind of scores are. So let's pick a phrase. There we are on the tables, and let's do a phrase count so we can see the kind of scores we're getting. So they're not high. Okay, angels, surprisingly enough, come up quite a bit. Let's just sort that. Okay, so 3 dots, top right hand corner, sort by the phrase count. And there we are. That's the kind of level we are looking at for these counts of the phrases. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a word cloud so you can see how that works. But I'll show you why it's important to do kind of understand the numbers before you start. There isn't a, pardon me, sorry. There isn't a word cloud as a standard visualization, but there's 3 dots at the bottom here that say get more visuals. And one of the ones that is at the top of the list at the moment is word cloud. You could also search for it. Okay, and there's all sorts in here. Some of the features are you have to pay for, but not very many of them. And there are some really powerful ones in there. So there we are. It's picked, successfully imported, and you'll see it's there at the bottom. Okay. And if I click on to word cloud, and into that word cloud, we're going to put in phrase, okay, as the category. And there we are, we get this whole phrase. But what it's done is it's broken up the phrases. So I haven't got things like Christmas Day. Somewhere in there, there'll be Christmas, and somewhere in there will be day. So what I want to do is I want to stop it breaking the phrases up. So we go to the formatting, and we look under general, and in there you'll see there is word breaking on, which means break it into separate words. So if I turn that off, there we are, we get phrases now, but they're all a bit small. They're not varying in type based off the phrase count. So if I go back in to here, we'll see that there is a values. So let's bring in my phrase count. I'm going to drag it to there. And there you are. You get Christmas Day and angels as we expect, and earth as the big phrases, okay? And there's Christ, and there's holly and God, etc. If you think there's too many small words in there, the other thing you can do with the word cloud is we can, under general, you'll see minimum number, maximum number. So 1 to 200. It means anywhere over 200 and more just all get sized at one size. So what I can turn around and say is, well, do you know what? I don't want the minimum to be 1. What does a 2 look like? Okay, do you see? You lose some of the small words, you get some of the big words. Yellow is a bad colour in this theme. I have decided. Bad colouring of my themes. But anyway, by the way, accessibility, do make sure you've picked colours that work. Okay, because that morning that's written across there is really difficult to read, and I don't think it would pass any accessibility test. And as for that pale green Son of God over there, it's unreadable. So do put your themes through your accessibility people, okay? And there are a number of resources out there to help you do that. So there is my phrases and how they're sized. I don't have to have this table if I don't want it. I can just click into there and work it, and it will resize that based off it. We could have put in some columns about whether hymns were traditional, etc. Okay. We can also, so what I'm also going to do is we're going to do, I've got time, although I am trying to finish on time for once. So I'm going to add a new measure. So my last question in my presentation was to do the length of song. Okay, so does length of song make any difference to our sentiment and possibly to our phrases? Okay, so we need a measure that's going to measure our song length. So new measure. And I'm going to call it song length. Okay. Now there is a pretty good well-known function out there called len, which will the number of characters in a text string. So that'll tell me how long a song is. That'll tell me how long a string is. But now I've got to add together the verses that are related to a song. So I'm going to put inside the length a concatenate x. Okay, so concatenate x will add together concatenate strings based off of a table. So concatenate x, and the table we are going to go for is our carol verses. Okay, so that's the table. Put in a comma. It then asks you, well, what do you want to add together on there? So I'm going to go for the verse from carol verses. So carol verses verse. That's the expression. I don't need a delimiter or anything like that. We're just going to put in a round. I don't worry about order by because I don't really care what comes out of that concatenate because I just want the measure of the length and close brackets. Okay, so that gives me a length. So now I can let's put in a, I don't know if I can do, let me see if this works. Let's put in a slicer. I have to confess this part, I'm not totally sure it's going to work, but hey, let's try it. No, I can't do it that method. So let's try putting in a filter onto this one. Let's see if it makes any difference. Okay, so I'm just going to bring in a song length. Okay, and let's go song length. Let's find out how long our songs are. That's a good idea first. So let's just do a quick check of our data. So let's bring in our song names and our song length. So there we are. We can see how long our songs are. So let's go for our songs that are longer than 750 words. Okay, so if I delete that for a second, so let's come into here and is greater than 750. So let's see if that makes any difference to that, and I click apply filter. Didn't make much difference to that. Let's go and have a look at our sentiments. Let's see if we can change some things here. So if I take out the short hymns, okay, so let's bring in our song length into here. So I'm dragging it into the filters pane on this visual. So I've selected the visual and then I'm going to click into here and I'm going to go for is greater than 750. and click apply filter. That's what I always forget to do. And you see, you get down to a shorter list, okay? So we're looking at our longer hymns. So you could perhaps choose, you could categorize your hymns based off whether they're long or they're short, okay? So what we're gonna, so I've put in a sentiment page and I've put in a phrase page. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cheat quickly. And I'm going to copy that visual, move on to this page, and I'm going to paste. The nice thing is it will copy and paste it into exactly the same place. Okay, so you just need to be aware of what filters you've put in where. So I've not, so I can if I put a filter onto there and I decide, you know what, that doesn't make any difference, I can remove it by clicking the cross. Okay, and there we are. It's tweaked it back again. It wasn't a huge change, but it did make a change to this chart here. Okay, so once we've done all of our parts here, we can go to publish. We need to save before we go up. See, there's my Blue Peter version. It asks you which workspace you want to go to, so I'm going to go to Laura GB and click select. Give it a moment. It's taking a while today. Any questions just while I wait for this to load? Has anybody got data they can see sentiment being used within their organization? Just make sure I haven't missed any questions. Don't think I have. I've requested the Teams to Microsoft Teams people to make this scroll bar longer. So there we are. It's loaded. I'm just going to fire up the browser to get us to there. My browsers have to log me in as the right people, otherwise we don't get to see the right things. So here we are, and I put it into this workspace. And there we are, there's my Reactor Christmas Carol, and I can click on it. I didn't rename my pages. I should have. They say page 1 and page 2. That's not particularly good. But there we go. We can produce our report there. Okay. The only other thing that I was going to cover in here is refreshing. You obviously need to set it up that you can refresh. So if you click on the 3 dots, as long as all your data is online based, okay, can't be refreshed because we can't work it out. So if I just click edit credentials, I've used the AI functions, so it's going to ask me OAuth 2. Let's make it organizational. Sign in. I'm really hoping it's not going to ask for a password because that means I'll have to remember it. And you have to get all the ones that got little crosses on them. So I have to do the same thing here. This one is anonymous, but I'm going to get organizational as well, just so it doesn't get upset. There we go. And now I can put a scheduled refresh in, and I can turn around and say, whenever I want that to be refreshed, I just add a time in here. So let's go for 4 a.m. because, hey, 4 a.m. and then click apply. And if I go back into my, there we are. We've got our data set, and it's going to be refreshed tomorrow morning at 4 a.m. just in case I write a carol tonight, or perhaps add some more carols to our Excel file there. So that was using sentiment and pulling out phrases. You could have also done a detect language. So there's some really interesting things you could do there with regards to sentiment analysis of even emails. It's a really interesting one to do. That word cloud is, I got advised to do it by a recruitment company when I was looking for a job, was take your CV and put it through a word cloud and see what words pop up, because that's the word people will notice the most, which is really cool. So yes, I did. I put my CV through Power BI and just see what it did, just to see what phrases came out of it, and what sentiment came out of it. It was a really interesting one to do. Somewhere I must have a PowerPoint presentation going on. There we go. There's my demo. So, Guy and a Cube, Adam and Patrick are amazing. They do 3 videos a week. On Saturdays, they've been doing live question times, which have been awesome. They've stopped for the year now. They've stopped for a Christmas break, but they will be back. Marco and Alberto, the modeling DAX gurus, they are stunning at what they do, and they do lovely little short videos. So there we are, like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, etc. That's and just to explain how things work. And if they say that's how it works in DAX, that's how it works. And if it doesn't, poke them on Twitter and tell them, and they'll come back and explain to you how you're wrong, because they usually are right. And then there's myself. I do various videos out there, mostly at the moment on data flows, but that's another topic for another session. Okay, so there are some brilliant resources on Learn TV. Go and have a look at what Microsoft have provided. There are some awesome sessions there. Okay, there are some awesome things. Go look. So over your Christmas break, take a couple of hours and just walk through some of the Learn TV resources and some of the learning paths that have been set up. They are some awesome things out there. If you have any questions, if you have anything what else you want to know, reach out to me on Twitter. I'm usually there, or even on LinkedIn. I read my messages there. I don't ignore my messages there. It works. Okay, so thank you for coming. Have an awesome Christmas. I hope you're going to get a Christmas break. I realise there's probably going to be some people here who have an end of financial year that's hitting on the 1st of January, and so they probably aren't getting so much of a break as they would like. My thoughts go with you. I've been there. I've been supporting those kind of teams. So back to you, Emma.
Thanks so much, Laura. Brilliant session. Really enjoyed it. Hope everyone enjoyed it too. And thanks for all of your comments coming through and questions as well. Laura, I hope we have you back early in the new year for your next session with us. We've got a couple more sessions happening before Christmas that you'll be able to find on the Reactor meetup page. So do check them out and pop along to some of them if you have time. Most of these sessions are recorded, so you can always go on to our YouTube channel, which I'll actually just post now because I realise I haven't. And you can watch lots of our videos on demand. But I think we'll leave it there. I don't see any more questions coming through. So Laura, thanks once again, And thank you everyone for attending, and we will see you at the next reactor session.
Take care, guys.